Happy International Women's Day, comrades and friends, and solidarity greetings from the United States. From the country that is ruled by a rogue Trump administration, one that has struck down abortion rights, one that is terrorizing communities with immigrant families, which means all of our communities, an administration that is waging yet another illegal war in the Middle East. From this country, we are also seeing uprising and resistance, as we have always witnessed when the ordinary people in the United States say no more to the oppression and violence of its government and their police and military forces. In the spirit of the civil rights movement, the anti-Vietnam War movement, the gay liberation, the women's movement, the Me Too movement, the movement for Black lives, we are now part of an organic, community-based wave of anti-ICE organizing in schools and towns and campuses and workplaces. Unsurprisingly, women are a cornerstone of the resistance we are building in this country against the horrors of ICE and deportations. These women come from all backgrounds and walks of life. Immigrant women, mothers, teachers, healers, Black and brown women, queer and trans women, grandmothers, young girls, women of faith, women who are simply fed up. In support of our immigrant friends, neighbors, and families, women and our allies are helping to raise rent relief funds for families, delivering groceries, giving folks rides to their appointments, driving their neighbors and colleagues to work and back, protesting, patrolling, lobbying elected officials. Of course, it isn't only women doing this organizing, but we are central to it. And this resistance is not just taking place in Minneapolis, but around the country and towns, big and small. For how can we not, as our neighbors, our families and friends are being brutally kidnapped from our communities, and ordinary protesters are being killed for just peaceably assembling? As Palestinian-American Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has said, what ICE and CBP are doing to our neighbors in Minneapolis and elsewhere across our country is horrific. They are targeting everyone in their path, not just our immigrant neighbors. They are shooting and killing people in cold blood. ICE needs to get out of our neighborhoods now. This is an agency that cannot be reformed. It must be abolished. So this International Women's Day, friends, we remain inspired by the immigrant women in the United States who are fighting to keep their families safe, by the women in the Middle East and Palestine who must constantly resist the brutal imperialism of the United States and Israel. And we are inspired by the women, girls, and non-binary siblings everywhere who challenge the misogyny and sexism brought upon us by the capitalist system. Together with our allies, we will continue to organize, to strike, and to resist. I am happy to stand in solidarity with all of you forever, comrades and friends. Thank you.
I feel a bit guilty standing here again, but this is our day. We're not supposed to feel guilty for taking up space, are we? So I was sat with the kids the other day doing some English homework, and I just wanted to join in, so I sat here writing this thing and then read it afterwards and quite liked it. And then in thinking of a title, which I do afterwards, I thought Murder of the Spirit, so I looked it up on Google, and apparently spirit murder is actually a coined term, which I'm not going to go into. But anyway, I've named it The Caged Bird Still Sings. The weaker sex, you tell me, emotionally deficient, too sensitive, you say. Your moods change like the weather. My enigmatic mind bewilders you, if only you sought to understand my soul. I call it emotionally industrious, as I bleed into my trousers, repairing the cracks in our home, bearing life through my loins as I navigate finances and politics to make my way. Incapacitated by my body, relentlessly sexually objectified, you seek to dominate me, ripping the shreds of innocence from my heart. Scrutinized, questioned, condemned, too tight, too short, too much? How does it make you feel when I talk too loud? Does my truth steal your mastery? Your footsteps send shudders down my spine. My voice is hoarse, hairs prickle. You tell me I hold grudges. I say I've been broken too many times to play charades anymore. Dynamic in my goals, loyal in my mission, yet silenced in my home, dismissed into submission. Does this serve you? My body wears scars of resilience like fire, embers glowing, punishable, like kintsugi, but with lead, poisoned through the cracks that you'd repair, you said. PSTD, trauma, rage, vulnerable, open wounds. Yet I rise again from the depth of the unknown me you never seek, determined, on behalf of the women, the ones we don't see, the mothers, the daughters, the ones just like me. We'll rise, we'll shout, we'll let the world know, because women are no longer letting it go. Our bodies might arouse you, but they belong to we. I'm sorry if it hurts you just to leave us be. I never meant to hate, we don't want to rule. Control and supremacy always has losers. I am the daughter of a good man. I seek to empower myself, not to be superior to you. Courageous and strong, our voices are bold. We aren't giving up until our veins run cold. It's not hating men, it's not turning woke. It's choosing morality over society being broke.
First off, I wanted to say what an amazing job the organisers have done to create such an important event in Dorchester. With the growing rise of reform, it has never been more important to show our retaliation to their hate and our embrace of love. Speaking of love, my close friend Isabella Kamani-Jeebit was meant to be stood here today speaking about the difficulty of being a woman in Iran as a bright, beautiful, clever and inspiring young Iranian woman, and through that wrote a moving speech. As she couldn't be here today, I've been kindly asked to speak her words, which I will do proudly. As a student of literature, I am obligated to quickly quote the amazing feminist writer Audre Lorde, who said, "I am not free, while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." Now I'm going to present Isabella Kamani-Jeebit's speech on women in Iran using her words. First, I'd like to thank you all for coming along today. It means so much to know there are people here in Dorset who care deeply for my people, my culture, and my country. Currently, the world is watching tensions rise between Iran, the USA, and Israel. Military strikes, threats, and a growing fear of a wider war have left many people uncertain about what comes next. This moment reminds us how fragile peace can be. We cannot stay silent in the face of conflict and justice. We must continue to stand for peace, for dignity, and for the protection of human life. Because when the voices for justice grow louder than the sounds of war, hope can still rise. US and Israeli bombs will not be the one to liberate women. It will be the women I speak about today, strong enough to stand up. The courage and strength of women in Iran who refuse to bow down to injustice, who demand dignity, equality, and freedom of choice are the women that make me proud to be Iranian. They are told how to dress and how to behave. They are watched and judged, but they rise again and again like the sun that refuses to set. Dehumanizing restrictions are used to punish women who go against the oppressors. They face appalling penalties, including prison, fines, travel bans, and even the threat of death for peaceful protests and defiance of these rules. Mothers and daughters are facing a choice no woman should ever have to make: her dignity or her safety. Despite these extraordinary challenges, women in Iran have risen. They have said no to fear. They've taken off their headscarves in public. They've shared their voices with the world to say that their bodies are not property of the state but their own. They've chanted for freedom, standing in the streets united, standing for women like Mahsa Amini and Sorna Golan, sparking the woman life freedom movement. It saddens me to think of the mothers and daughters at risk, the young women who look in the mirror each morning knowing that their courage could cost them their freedom. I think of every Iranian woman who has stood in the face of fear and said, "Enough is enough. Their fight is our fight." Speak for those who are silenced, and to stand with the women of Iran until every woman and girl can live free, with her head held high and her future in her own hands. Show the fearlessness these women exert. Their bravery is changing history. I'm proud to be Iranian. I'm proud to come from female bravery. Thank you.
I've got a letter here that I want to just read out, and it's from Jo McGregor. And a lot of us have been involved in PSE from the start will know her. She's a young trans woman who's done some wonderful campaigning and wonderful fighting, but she's not well enough to be here today. So she sent me this. And this is a typical Jo start. "I feel guilty because Sam asked me to help organise this event, and I've done absolutely nothing towards it. But my name is Jo, and I use she, they pronouns. And then she asked me to come and speak, and I haven't even managed that. And when she asked me to send something to read out, I panicked. My head feels completely drained and empty, with no inspiration of what to say, despite the incessant hourly horrors on my phone. The truth is that between full-time work, parenting my 3 young children, staying on top of my mental well-being, I feel like I'm spread out pretty thin. Then I realised that is exactly the point. That's the system of capitalist patriarchal power working perfectly, keeping us toiling, creating wealth for the shareholders, raising the next generation of workers, spread thin, just about keeping our heads above water, but without the time, energy or motivation to meet with others, share ideas, build communities and actually change things for our own benefit. So I'm envious of you all today, as I imagine you all, I can feel the energy, love and community in the room. A community which has not just acknowledged and accepted my femininity as a trans person, but celebrated it. Because I always forget that it is in celebration that we make the most progress. Be that a Palestinian girl learning to skateboard amongst the rubble or a female plumber elected to Parliament in Manchester. As Emma Goldman said, if I can't dance to it, it's not my revolution. So look after each other and dance more, especially the Dabka. Free Palestine.
I brush my teeth while the world burns on my smartphone screen. Mint foam in the sink. Tears sting. Every breath feels like a tight sorrow grief. Coffee brews and so do wars. I scroll through images of genocide like I'm searching for rain's schedule on my weather app. Protests. They quietly thunder here and there. Political violence, a mere lightning spark in the faraway land. They shoot, a life is gone. We swipe up, move on. Doom scrolling never stops. They appear, they disappear. Their names are never revealed. Why should we care? It's not happening here. Palestine in the headlines, Sudan in the margins, Congo in the footnotes, Iran in the whispers, Ukraine is defeated by the sirens, and in the US, ICE lurked in the shadows. Boots on concrete, names on files, lives in cages of policy and greedy desires. Wars stack like notifications. Genocide victims are reduced to numbers. Protests boiling in streets. Political violence flickering in the distance. But we are unable to decide on travel destinations and products from corporations. Why should we care? It's not happening here. I answer emails while cities collapse. I fold laundry while mothers kiss their martyred sons a final goodbye. I brush my sister's hair while a soldier cuts off a braid of someone else's child. My calendar is full, but their graves are fuller. This is not just a juxtaposition. As we bear witness, they suffer in silence. Small, soft, careless lives pressed against a world that is bleeding out. Feeling of hate rising like smoke. It's suffocating, polluting. But the hate is not from them, but from systems that taught us that some lives are negotiable, some deaths are acceptable, some suffering is way too complicated, don't you dare question it. And our love feels small, performative translated into likes, compressed into hashtags, as we bear others to share footage on their stories of bombs that fill their skies at night. But why should we care? It's not happening here. Isolation wraps and guilt consumes. I feel connected to everything, and yet I am responsible for nothing. And perhaps the most violent thing of all are not the bombs, not the borders, not the laws, but the way we learn to live beside each atrocious act as if it was the weather, as if some storms were not made by human hands. Pain without action is a slow genocide of the self, until we are forced to feel again, not numb, not scrolling, but human. But again, why should we care? It's not happening here.
History knows the price of freedom is paid in sacred blood. It knows because we are the direct result of women who have endured centuries of trauma and fight to bring us to the light. For every story we tell, 1,000 have gone untold. For every warm, bright liberty we have won, hundreds of battles have been fought. Mountains have been moved to bring us here, and we know from experience of this year how quickly the hard-won freedom could disappear. We know we owe it to keep them fighting as hard as we can. We owe it to Mary Wollstonecraft, Rosa Parks, Bell Hooks, Sojourner Truth. We owe it to Sylvia Pankhurst, Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou. We owe it to them to rise the torch that they've kept burning for so long, to turn it into a wildfire throughout our daughters and granddaughters, an epic war song. So to all the little girls out there, we'll set alight a world that takes away your choices, that tells you can have less value, that diminishes your voice, and tries to make you feel like you should be small. And we should build you a better one from that, the embers and the ashes. The kind of world which treasures you, where you can grow feeling like your voice has a value, where you feel like that you're 1,000 feet tall. Thank you.
It has been 3 years since the war in Sudan and 6 years since the revolution that toppled Omar al-Bashir's dictatorship. And the aftermath of that revolution has led to the world's largest displacement crisis. And throughout all of this, Sudanese women have been at the forefront. Many people around the world first noticed Sudanese women and our political involvement during the 2019 revolution, when an image of Ala Salah standing on a car dressed in white leading chants spread across the internet. That moment became an icon of the Sudanese revolution, but that image only tells a fraction of the story. Sudanese women were not simply present in the revolution, but we were its backbone. It's estimated that women made up around 60 to 70% of the protesters. We organised demonstrations, coordinated neighbourhood resistance committees, ran medical support, and mobilised communities despite facing arrest, sexual violence and harassment. And this tradition of political organising didn't begin simply in 2019. Sudanese women have had a long history of collective political struggle. As early as the 1950s, women formed organisations like the Sudanese Women's Union, which fought for women's rights, education and labour protections, also had to challenge authoritarian rule. These organisations helped women gain the right to vote and participate in public life. They built networks that allowed women to organise not only for gender equality, but for broader social and political change. In other words, Sudanese women were building the infrastructures of the resistance decades before it even happened, before the world even noticed us. Even today, during the ongoing Sudanese civil war, women continue to organise. With institutions collapsing and millions displaced and thousands dead, women's groups have created mutual aid networks. They've coordinated food distribution, provided education for displaced children, and supported fellow survivors of the violence. Sudanese women remind us that politics isn't what happens in parliaments or between generals, but it's the act of organising everyday people, building solidarity and refusing to accept injustice as inevitable. On International Women's Day today, celebrating Sudanese women, to me at least, means recognising them not just as victims of conflict or like icons of struggle, of courage to be idolised, but as organisers, strategists, thinkers and political leaders who continue to shape the struggle for freedom and justice in Sudan. So the audacity of Reform and Nigel Farage to insinuate that Muslim women have been coerced or pressured into voting Green angers me, because time and time again, Muslim women have been painted as docile and subservient, as if we have not proven time and time again that we are so much more than these racist stereotypes push onto us. This doesn't just apply to Sudanese women, but to Palestinian women and Iranian women as well. Even here, during the Palestine movement, we saw young hijabi women at the forefront mobilising, yet these same women are spoken about as if they have no political agency. The same forces that portray Muslim women as passive are often the same ones fueling anti-refugee sentiment and hostility towards migrants. Refugees, many of them being women fleeing war and violence, are framed not as people seeking safety but as problems, threats or burdens. Their voices are ignored whilst others speak out for them. But when we look in reality, we see something very different. We see women organising, being leaders in their communities, supporting each other and fighting for justice, whether it's in Sudan, Palestine, Iran or here. These stories show that real political power doesn't begin in institution. It begins when ordinary people stand up in the face of oppression. It starts when young working class people band together and prioritise communities. It begins in the streets, in the hands of women who decide that change is necessary and organise to make it happen. If we want to look to the future of Sudanese society, we cannot look towards the politicians who have been ruling with an iron fist for generations now, but to the women who have been building it. Thank you.